right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started. My name is Rachael Newberry. I am the program director at RIoT and your host for today's virtual event. Thanks for joining us. This is, I believe, our fourth virtual event. I might be mistaken about that. We've been running a lot of virtual events these days, but our fourth in this webinar series related to COVID-19 and how local businesses are navigating these uncertain times. This specific event, we are excited to kind of brand as the Mission R launch event, if you will. We have 6 projects that we're really excited to share with you today that are part of our Mission R initiative, as well as a partner joining us to share about some interesting innovations with their company as well. To get started, you all will remain on mute. Feel free to add questions or comments into the message box, and we'll be monitoring that as well. Caroline, if you'll jump back to the RIoT slide, I will start with just a brief introduction of RIoT and who we are as an ecosystem. If you're not familiar with what we do, we are an economic development nonprofit focused on sector growth in the Internet of Things. And all of the work that we do is made possible by these sponsors. So we want to just extend a quick thank you to them. We support all of these companies in pursuing business opportunities that the data economy presents. So every group that you see up here is interested in emerging technologies and pursuing new innovation opportunities that those technologies present. And so we're thankful that we have this awesome ecosystem behind us. A bit more on the format today. So I mentioned that you have access to a Q&A box. Please type in questions from there, and we'll have an opportunity to address those to our panelists today at the end. We have 3 awesome panelists with us today. And before we get started with digging into what those groups are working on, I wanted to quickly introduce you all to the 6 Mission R teams that we are supporting. So I'm going to jump around on this list a bit, but wanted to give a bit of detail about what each of these groups are working on. First, Active Solutions. They analyze public input to pull out themes and anticipate insights for local governments, and they help local governments to tailor their efforts to the most critical public needs. So certainly a really important issue in today's economy and the current climate with the pandemic. Project Contact is developing a contact tracing solution that addresses sensitive privacy issues and also helps epidemiologists to better track and understand community spread of COVID-19. And of course, in addition, helps the public to improve their social distancing behaviors. Jack Twitty is a biomedical engineer in the UNC NCSU program, and he's building a better feedback system for manual ventilation. So in anticipation of ventilator shortages, hospitals are preparing to potentially have a widespread rollout of manual ventilation for patients. Today, that is difficult for the operating medical professional to understand if they are delivering care in an effective way. And so Jack is improving that process for a better operation of the manual ventilation systems. Smart Clinic, to keep on moving here, is a joint effort between Trilliot, Alfred Williams & Company, and Emblem. Together, they are providing RFID-enabled and blockchain-documented chain of custody for medical equipment, test kits, and all hospital furnishings that can be deployed at field hospitals or in other emergency medical setups. And our final 2 are actually here with us today. We have Emily from COVIDMobilize and Rod from Socialize, so I'll let them share more about what they're working on. And we also have our partner, Bear, who is also deploying really fascinating pandemic solutions. And so we'll jump into what each of you all are working on here. So I'd like to welcome Emily Breedlove from COVIDMobilize, Rod Greco with Socialize, and Scott Broaddus from Bear to our virtual studio today. I'll first give each of you a chance to briefly introduce yourself and your organization. So Rod, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, RIoT, for inviting me. Pretty happy to be here. So, as you know, my name is Rod. I'm actually, you may figure out by my accent, I'm originally from Brazil. I moved in 2009. I used to work for ABB, it's a corporate America, and spent about 10 years in the company. And I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I left the company back, I think it was 2015. I joined a startup in Durham, and I also launched a couple of businesses. And since then, which is Rachael Medical Innovation, using AI for, it's a platform that uses AI to help radiologists be more productive. And Amplifi Labs is it's an app dev shop that focuses on helping startups build the MVP and prototypes. About a month ago, and that's why I'm here for Socialize, my team and I, same co-founders as Amplifi Labs, we saw an opportunity to help people network and connect better, especially now during this time. So we started a project called Socialize. It's been very, very new. Everything is recent, so about a month, like I said. And basically, we're trying to change how people connect and network.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rod. Scott, please introduce yourself. Thanks.
Hey, Rachel. Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here, of course. My name is Scott Broadus. I'm the sales and business lead for corporate startup, which was developed inside Bayer. And yes, it is Bayer Pharmaceutical, but more importantly, our crop science business, where we have a tremendous amount of focus in and around pest management, public health, and food safety. And, about 3 years ago, we started developing kind of this corporate enterprise, if you will, that was designed to start delivering digital and IoT solutions to address some of the challenges in those various segments. And we did so right hand in hand with our customers. And so we're excited to be here, share some of the things that we're seeing in the market today. And thanks to RIoT. We've been working with RIoT as a sponsor for the past couple of years, and so we appreciate the opportunity. And again, glad to be here. So thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Great. Emily, I'll pass it over to you. I think you're on mute. There we go.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Emily Breedlove. I am a serial entrepreneur based in Asheville and worked, way too long within entrepreneurial ecosystems, helping support startups and companies that are scaling. And so I'm part of the COVIDMobilize team, which is a team of founders that really jumped into the mix on the COVID response and recovery efforts to really get a sense of how we could build a tech tool that helped bring area businesses to the front lines. And so really helping to really mobilize the businesses from a manufacturing sense, services and technology services, really address some of the critical needs that the government agencies and healthcare providers and nonprofits were facing, that private enterprise is uniquely equipped to really jump into the mix and help solve those problems on the ground level. So we certainly are learning a lot through this web app, floating in the space between government and business, and figuring out how all of our supply chains and all of our public infrastructure services are addressing this crisis all across the country.
Wonderful. Great. So thanks to the three of you for being here with us today. We're excited to share the projects that you're tackling. You're really working on a variety of challenges presented by the COVID-19 crisis. So to get us started, I would like to go a little bit deeper with the three of you, and maybe Emily, let's stay with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about COVIDMobilize and the problems that you're solving? Maybe share a couple of examples of needs or needs met that have happened on your platform already. I know you all just launched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, this started with a network of CEOs based in Asheville that we were running larger, more stable companies, that we had staff and we had assets, that we were in a position where we could quickly pivot or mobilize to help the frontline efforts. But the challenge was that there really wasn't a place for businesses to engage, especially in the first wave. We were told to shut down and go home. which from a safety standard, we all understand the reason behind that. But even from home, there were a lot of things that these companies, experts, businesses were able to really adjust in order to make these things available. There were a lot of needs that area nonprofits and hospitals and government agencies that they had that only businesses could meet those needs. So an example is the Manna Food Bank, the local nonprofit, was having to shift from dispersing food from within their space where people would physically show up and like shop as in a grocery store. And they had to completely switch to either delivery methods or drop-off methods so that there wasn't that engagement of the one-on-one person. And so it not only challenged, they needed to source more food, but they also had to completely restructure their operations, and they needed a warehouse. And so those were two things that only a business really knew how to do. And so we were able to connect them with companies that had the expertise in very quickly adjusting their internal operations, as well as companies that had available warehouse space that had cold storage as well, so that they were able to very quickly be able to stock. And so we started recognizing that there were a lot of critical needs that businesses could service around, not just around PPE production, which we're also helping with that, but also just manufacturing and production support, services, tech triage. A ton of government agencies, their sites crashed because they weren't built to handle that kind of traffic. And so being able to connect them with developers and tech supporters really quickly to get their sites back online, these were things that only businesses can help with, but there was no mechanism to engage that. And so we started building the web app as a free portal where businesses, nonprofits, healthcare providers, and governments were able to go in and create a profile for themselves, as well as then post projects around specific needs that they have, as well as specific resources that they could make available, so that then we could leverage technology to automate these matchmaking and start addressing the bigger, more complicated needs that we had as a community.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that detail. You all are certainly enabling a huge range of needs to be met. And this platform, this team in Asheville, they turned it around and launched it within 2 weeks, I think it was, right, Emily?
Yeah, well, I mean, the 1.0 was launched within 48 hours, but as we all know, 1.0 is never really where you need to be. So our team really had to buckle down and get to a viable 2.0 within 2 weeks.
Yeah, it looks great. I encourage everyone on the call to go check out the platform, and you can create a profile and you can post needs that you see, or you can post things that you can offer in terms of support. So
yeah, totally free.
Yeah, totally free. So check that out. Thanks for sharing some examples, Emily. Socialize is also a Mission R project alongside COVIDMobilize. And Rod, you all are focusing on a very specific gap that the business community is facing at this time, our inability to network as usual. So tell us about your solution and how you're helping solve that problem of the lack of face time during this current situation.
Yeah, so first of all, good job, Emily. 2 weeks is pretty amazing to launch an MVP. That's great. So, it's interesting because everything is happening so fast. As you can see, everybody here is talking about weeks and not even months, right, to launch things. And for me and Socialize, the same thing. Everything kind of happened about a month ago after, understanding the situation, what's happening, and also after reading a couple of articles written by VCs, actually local VCs, mentioning that some of their startups are suffering, taking a big hit of the lack of ability to do networking, to do lead gen, put their brand out there, and early stage startups, we all need people to get where we need to be. You never get that alone. And I feel a pain myself with Amplifi Labs as a service company. You need to be always being remembered and out there. So I thought, there's something here I think that I could try to solve. So I tried to do some research. I didn't find really anything specifically about networking. There's a lot of companies out there, including WebEx and Zoom, that they have a different purpose, and people are trying to use those tools to kill a need. And I think it's a Band-Aid in a bigger wound, right? So Socialize is basically an online platform that allows people to connect in real time, virtually, obviously. And what we're trying to focus is provide as much as close to reality as an in-person networking event. So very similar experiences, the similar flow where attendees can, connect to each other, private conversations, one-on-ones, or or small groups, and you have a bunch of small groups connected to each other. You can call people, introduce people to each other. So again, simulating that flow that you don't have now anymore with these digital tools that you actually need in order to have things happen. So when you're in an event, the magic happens when you're actually not expecting. If you're trying to sell, stop selling. That's a basic saying. So you can't expect to have join a tool where things are preset. Small groups are preset that you should talk to each other. And I think that's what we're missing right now. And talking to a lot of people, I realize that that's a big pain.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I love that you all are trying to simulate that sort of spontaneous collision that happens at an event. So certainly a fascinating project. Scott, Bayer has been tracking a completely unexpected public health issue that has resulted from COVID-19, but it's not directly related to the virus itself. Can you explain what that is and how Bayer is connected?
Yeah, it's interesting. So as I alluded, we really have a tremendous focus in and around pest management, public health, and that has a clear correlation to food safety as well. But what's been really interesting is, as we've seen, a tremendous decrease in public activity, especially in highly populated metropolitan urban areas. There's been this tremendous influx and increase in rodent activity, right? And so we don't always like to think about the importance of pest control and the risks that pests carry, right? Especially in metropolitan and urban areas, but it's a tremendous concern, right? They carry a number of different viruses, diseases ranging from salmonella, encephalitis, and even West Nile virus, for example, right? So we don't always keep those type of things top of mind, and so we've been working really diligently as an industry to highlight the importance of pest management as an essential service. And as we've seen, and I would really encourage the audience, if you're not following any of these headlines, to just New Orleans, the city of New Orleans specifically is a really great example. They have a really structured program, and that decrease in human activity has really spiked rodents and rats specifically venturing out to look for other sources of food in areas where historically they may not have ventured out to, right? But they're very opportunistic, adaptive creatures, and it's important to maintain control of public health threats such as rodents. So it's been really interesting to see it evolve over the past 6 and 7 weeks.
Awesome. Yeah, it's certainly a kind of behind the scenes issue, but certainly a critical one. So the work you're doing is really, really fascinating. As all of you are exploring these new opportunities to solve today's problems, how do you find that stakeholders that you're engaging with, whether that's a potential customer or potential partner, how are they responding to the solutions that you're proposing? And maybe, Emily, let's start with you. I know you all are working a lot of angles to meet needs in the community. So how are the stakeholders you're engaging with responding?
Well, we are we're staying very heavily in the mix on conversations that are happening both on the ground level of just communities and businesses that are kind of navigating the conversation around reentry and economic recovery. And it's such a polarizing time right now in this country that really talking about bringing businesses back to work is such a challenging conversation to have right now. Because, we're looking at how companies can safely support the initiatives that are taking place within their community, that there's a lot of work that you can do without actually having to go out in public. And that even just the idea portion, the expertise portion of involving entrepreneurs and private enterprise in these projects, even that is challenging to have that conversation right now. And so, what we're really looking at is how we share this tool that is very much a timely resource in a time when people are, they're exhausted. They're exhausted of reading stories. They're exhausted of engaging in this conversation, that it's such a heated topic. It's almost like a communication minefield right now. It's very difficult for businesses to release not only new products, but to even be having a public relations conversation with the press right now. And so I know we're actively engaging in conversations behind closed doors of talking to government officials, getting a sense of what these departments are really needing, that they're needing to source these things. They need face masks, they need hand sanitizer, but they also need support. You know, they need businesses involved in this work, but it's such a delicate topic that it's hard to look at on social media. It's hard to send out email newsletters. It's hard to work with the press right now, because I think for the most part, our country is tired. Mm-hmm. And so I know, because that's one of the biggest roles that I play in this project is the public relations support and marketing, that, we're having to be really sensitive to the fact that this is a challenging time to release product. It's a challenging time to engage businesses. It's really just a challenging time to have a public conversation about this stuff. So I think we're all, we're continually having to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on, and just being really aware and sensitive to where we are right now and where we're going to be tomorrow. Because I feel like it's just constantly in a state of evolution.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, kind of keeping your finger on the pulse. I think that's what we at RIoT have had to coach a lot of startups through, is how to just stay engaged with their stakeholders and have this kind of just empathy towards all of the uncertainty and how things are evolving quickly, and how complex the challenges are. So I know you all are engaging in a lot of conversations, and you're doing the good work. Rod, how are you seeing businesses adjust to the new norm? In your realm of things, are you seeing people experimenting with alternative ways to connect to new people?
Yeah, definitely yes. So I've talked to a bunch of event organizers, sponsors, and entrepreneurs before even doing anything, and I have not one single person saying that they're not trying to find a solution. And like I mentioned before, a lot of people are trying to use Zoom, Google Meets, WebEx, and things like that to solve a problem that is not, these tools were not created for that specific problem, a specific purpose. So, they're not intended to network, and they're not intended to create new and random connections, like people bump into each other. So I think that these are obviously, workaround solutions, temporary, but I think there's a huge opportunity for people to do better. And you mentioned the new norm, and I do agree completely with you. I think, after this all crazy times we're passing through coronavirus, things are not going to go back to normal. I don't think virtual will ever substitute in person, but I think it will be a huge complement. There's clear benefits of going virtual, like home office is one of them. I think a lot of offices are realizing that, the cost savings and the benefits of people working from home, and events is another one. So you can reach broader audiences, doing this kind of events. You can have a higher efficiency in meeting people. It's a higher ROI, lower cost. So there's a lot of benefits. And like I mentioned before, I don't think it will substitute, but why not using the best of both worlds? Why not combining virtual and in-person events? So I definitely think it's not going to go back to the way people were doing things before.
Agree. Yeah, it's kind of this time of massive experimenting, and people are figuring out what works and what doesn't. And I think we'll take a lot of the best practices that we're forming now into the future for sure. That's a good point. Scott, can you share some success stories from the field as businesses adopt new technologies that you all are working on?
Yeah, sure. So the pest management industry is fairly mature, right? It's been around a long time, and a lot of those kind of traditional methodologies consist of very labor-driven, kind of the human element, right? Being there on a very frequent basis to, whether it's do inspections, check traps, or whatever it might be like, especially in food safety. And so some of the recent successes that we've seen is service providers applying and implementing digital solutions, such as what we've developed for remote monitoring for rodents, for example, which helps overcome a lot of the concerns that end clients face today, right? Mitigating risk of entering buildings and having, not as close proximity. Frequency of getting inside these buildings is a big challenge, especially as organizations apply new best practices in and around social distancing, right? So for our customers to be able to implement solutions that will help automate a lot of those traditional processes, I think has given a peace of mind to end clients. It's allowed our customers to deliver modern, creative solutions that help overcome concerns of end clients, at least in and around some of the challenges they're faced with right now.
Awesome, thanks. So all of you have kind of touched on some challenges that you're experiencing as you launch new projects during this time. What other challenges? Certainly want to hear, the highlights of other challenges you want to bring forth. But also, is there anything that the audience here might be able to help with? So I'll let, whoever wants to jump in first, highlight some other challenges, and if you have an ask to bring forth to the audience, please share.
I can go. That's fine. So, obviously other than ones that we all mentioned before, I think one thing that is a huge challenge, and I was reading about it's investment. Obviously, VCs are holding back investment. They're rethinking how they invest and how much and who they invest in. I was just the other day reading an article on I think it was Entrepreneur magazine, about camel startups. It's the first time I've heard about this term last week. So if you haven't heard, I encourage you to read it. It's pretty interesting. VCs are moving from now unicorns, that the rare breed, to camel, what they call camel, because camels, they can survive in harsh environments. They can survive 100 years without water, and that's what they're looking for now. Startups that have a higher chance of success. So all that just to say that investment, obviously, it's a huge deal that startups are facing. I personally and Socialize, we're not ready for that yet, so it's not really something that I think we are in need at this moment. But I think that it's good stuff that they're doing. It's better than unicorns. But I think one thing that if I can ask the audience, I know how many people we have, Rachael? About is 80?
I actually can't see the list right now, but.
But anyway, okay, we have quite a bit of people. So definitely, we are Socialize is a platform that need people to connect and socialize and hang out and network. So obviously, if you guys can just reach out to me. I don't know if you're going to send emails or whatever that communication is going to be. Reach out in an email. I'd love to offer you guys to just test it out and give feedback. That's amazing. If you know any event organizer, local or nationally, that's fine. I would love to meet them and talk to them too. So that would be good help, I think.
Awesome. Thanks, Rod. Scott, Emily, any thoughts or asks?
Sure, Emily, would you like to go ahead or?
Sure. So ours is very much like Rod's. Our system, the value comes from people actively using the system. So the fact that it's open, it is nationwide, it's free. At any point, whether you're a government agency or a business, you can get in, create a profile, and then post really specific things that you have to offer or specific things that you need help with. We are actively now building the partnerships and getting enough users in the system to really create that value. So we're definitely actively recruiting our early adopters, those who can see the vision of what we're building, that can get in and help us really bring it to life, because it's become a really powerful tool that our team has invested far more time than our spouses would ever want it to have been. But we've built the tool, and so now we've just got to make it a valuable resource on the ground level. So if you go to COVIDMobilize.com, you can join at any time.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
I'll sign up, Emily. I'll volunteer for sure to see if there's not some synergy for sure. So I'm on board. But you're welcome. I would say one of the, just from my perspective, one of the challenges I'm experiencing is just customers' ability to focus right? So Emily alluded to all the things they're challenged with today, how to ensure their people are taken care of, that their doors continue to stay open. And so for us, it's a little bit different, right? Because we're trying to deliver some solutions that may be a little disruptive, right, on how they traditionally do business. And, to find ways to change the focus to where it's around value creation and looking at change in a positive light is really where I'm trying to support the folks that I'm working with. And so, I'm presenting a little bit of a unique use case, as it pertains to the pest management, how it correlates into food safety. But for me, it's around having the ability to continue to prove the value behind how you implement digital solutions that add value. And so if there's anybody in today's audience that works in a space that involves public health, food safety, of course, we want to ideate in and around how we can implement new solutions that create value and to put focus on it, because it does require some focus to actually validate and show that there's value in what you're doing. And so, yeah, that's kind of some of the things I'm seeing.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Scott. I've got a last question here before we open up to audience questions. So if you're listening and you've got a thought for any of our panelists, please type that into the box. But first, I want to ask, as you all are pursuing your respective ventures, what does the dream look like? If your solutions are widely adopted, how would it change the communities that you're supporting?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I mean, for us, there's a real simple statistic that we kind of lean on when people ask, well, what's the importance of, why should I be more proactive or, get to a point to where we're implementing your solution? Well, 20% of the world food supply is consumed by rodents. And it's a really interesting statistic, and it's like you wrap your head around what that really means and how many more people we could feed and things of that nature. It's a tremendous initiative within Bayer as an organization and the industry as a whole. So, we just want to break into that number, right? We want to be able to deliver more proactive solutions to help our customers and end clients throughout the food value chain. And so, in a perfect world, it's kind of chipping away one step at a time to help reduce that number a little bit.
Emily, you want to go? Or should I?
Oh, you guys are so sweet. You keep letting me go. That's awesome. Well, so, one of my personal goals in the work that I do is trying to give entrepreneurs a fighting chance at being successful. And so I really believe that this system has longevity potential even beyond the current pandemic and recovery efforts. If we're able to do a better job at giving businesses, especially local small to mid-sized businesses, a better chance at serving contracts and projects that governments and nonprofits have, then we're able to just help diversify their income streams in a way that they didn't have access to before. I think the more that we can build relationships between businesses and their local leaders, the more likely that their leaders are going to put in policy that is actually beneficial to their local businesses. So I don't see any downside in helping to really solidify and educate everybody around this. I mean, at the end of the day, better communication and better data is good for everybody, especially when it's revolving around long-term perks of supporting the small business community. So go entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I support that, Emily. Rod, what about you? What's the dream?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we're trying to change the way people connect and network. I like to think that we will be the next meetup, but virtual. That's kind of a dream goal, I'd say. Starting small, but dreaming big. I believe in empowering people to connect efficiently anytime, anywhere. And that will mean that, small entrepreneurs, small event organizers, they can do now big things with something like Socialize, for example. You can reach broader audiences. You can invest in big events with a fairly low cost, right? At least lower than in-person events. And to be completely honest, I'm still trying to figure out, there's a lot of possibilities for this tool. We are definitely starting with networking events, but, talking to people and thinking about it, there's people suggest you could use that in a hospital setting for connecting doctors and hospital members, universities connecting to, between faculty members 24/7. So I'm still trying to figure out, there's a lot of question marks, but, beachhead markets start with the real pain now, which is networking events. But I think that no matter where we use this tool, the core value, the biggest, the value proposition, it's actually allowing people to connect with people they don't know or they don't have access to without barriers. So that's the goal, the mission, I would say.
Fantastic. Thanks, y'all. You're really doing good work. Caroline, have we had any questions for our panelists come through? I'll open the floor for audience questions.
Thanks, Rachel. One question was, what is the website for Emily's platform? And I did hear her say it is COVIDMobilize.com. So just wanted to put that out there. And then a question for Emily specifically, what is the business model upon which COVIDMobilize becomes sustainable, given the service is free?
Yeah, that's been one of our biggest challenges that we've been looking at, because funding is also a minefield in this environment. So our biggest goal with the national platform was to make it free. We've been looking at a freemium model, but honestly, we've actually found more opportunity in white labeling the product for specific government footprints. So being able to work with regions or state agencies that have really specific sector challenges or that are covering a specific geographic region, and that they want to have a closed system where they're engaging their local nonprofits and local businesses. So right now we're really trying to just get a sense of, our platform is built to specifically address the COVID pandemic, but we've seen now that the tool has a lot more potential outside of COVID. So we just had a discovery call just this morning of really pulling apart, because we're considering a crowdfunding campaign, and we're just trying to get a sense of, where the country is and how comfortable they are having this conversation, and if it's more of a funding discussion that needs to happen on a smaller scale from agency to agency, as opposed to a fundraising tactic where we're involving the masses. So it is a delicate thing right now of really figuring out what's an appropriate funding ask. If we want to look at equity, it's still up in the air, and we're trying to figure out the best place to land on it.
Great question. What else, Caroline?
Emily. This question is directed at Rod. When do you expect to have a product version that will allow you to host a networking event?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually have an MVP already. We've been testing for the past week. We are testing with RIoT and a couple of other partners that we have. It is ready. There's a lot of, obviously, as any MVP, there's a lot of things missing. But I would say, for small events of, I would call early adopters, it's ready to be used. It's not ready to be commercialized yet, but, it depends on the question you were asking, if it's commercial or just to test it out. There's two answers for that.
Thanks so much, Rod. This next question is for Scott. What is the relationship between your project and, quote, startup land, given that Bayer is a giant multinational corporation?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, and we get this question often in forums where we're participating in kind of discussions with other startups. But as many folks know, Bayer's a very traditional company in the sense that they traditional development, chemistry, formulations, especially our crop science and environmental science business in different specialty markets. And I think we came to a conclusion at actually a workshop with with customers back in like 2016, where we started to look at a lot of the future trends in the industry, and it didn't have anything to do with traditional chemistry, right? So we quickly realized that if we wanted to start developing solutions, IoT solutions, digital solutions, that we needed to break away from how we normally do business. And it allowed us to develop really a corporate startup that had different reporting lines, that was empowered to do rapid innovation as opposed to going through really process-driven development channels, and that's how we still operate today. We operate as a kind of a small startup, and we report up to the organization. We have a different board in which we report to that supports funding when we need it, but we have to justify for it, right? So it is a very unique setup, but it has empowered us to be successful in a way we probably would not have if we managed our development and go to market and stuff like that, like a traditional product. So thank you for the question. I hope that answers it.
Thanks so much, Scott. This next question is for Rod. Is there a way to sign up to trial your networking tool?
Yeah, so right now, as I mentioned before, I would love for you guys to reach out. I don't, or if Rachael can send me everyone's email, I can do that either way. I don't have, but interesting enough, this week I was starting to putting together a Wix website myself, just very quickly, not waste a lot of time just for that, because I've seen, I got a list of people who are interested in testing as an event organizer. So I do definitely need to start collecting those names. I have a spreadsheet that I'm going to reach out once ready. But yeah, if you don't mind, whoever is asking that question, please reach out to me. And everybody else that I could, test the app, that would be great too.
Thanks so much, Rod. Rachael, those are all the questions that I see in the question box. Unless anybody has some last minute questions, feel free to send them through. I do want to just quickly plug and say thank you for joining today. We heard from people that are rapidly developing new products even during a crisis. And our next session shifts from what innovators are doing to how they are doing it, specifically product development during quarantine. We hope you'll join us to learn best practices for how to innovate in real time. That session is next Thursday at 1 p.m. And I'll let Rachael thank all of our speakers, but thank you on behalf of RIoT for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, Rod, Scott, Emily, thanks for being with us. I have one last lightning question, so if you can answer it super quickly. We like to ask this question these days. What are you most optimistic about right now? And maybe, Scott, I'll start with you.
All right. I feel like I need to think about that a little bit, but I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic by how various industries. I'm inspired by the things Rod and Emily are doing in such rapid ways. I mean, I'm optimistic by what we as a country are capable of, to be honest with you. I think there's two different ways to look at the current situation, which is to continue to be just totally engulfed in negativity and the challenges that we face, or to look at it in a positive light, although challenging at times. And so I'm optimistic that we'll be okay, and that we should stay positive and keep doing the good things that we're doing. So,
thanks, Scott. Emily, what about you?
I feel like as a country, we're kind of going through a lean startup phase, that we're trimming the fat a little, which is painful in places that get cut. But I feel like it's really streamlining as a nation what it is that we really want to have happen. And it's also leveling the playing field a little for entrepreneurs to emerge as introducing new innovation and introducing new ways of solving these problems. With any kind of disruption or reinvention, there is that challenge of kind of evolving to the other side. But I'm hoping that we are, as an economy, becoming more in line with what it is that we're wanting to achieve, and that we're cutting some of the excess that was slowing us down or clouding our vision a little bit. So hopefully on the other side, things are moving better. But unfortunately, we have to keep swimming through the mud in order to get there. So we'll see.
That's right. Great. Thanks, Emily. All right, and Rod, we'll wrap up with you.
Yeah, you asked to be quick. So the world will change for the better. I would like to think that, as it has always done after events like this. So I'm very optimistic that, tools like Emily, what initiatives like Scott is doing, and obviously there's many other people, instead of seeing the worst of it, trying to see opportunities to make it better. So.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for sharing what you're working on with us today. Just a couple of wrap-up things here. If you want to find this session, it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And as Caroline mentioned, we have another webinar on product development coming up next week, same day, same time. So hope you can join us there. Want to thank our sponsors again, and our contact information is up here if you'd like to reach out for any reason at all. We're here to help. So thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Rachel. Thanks. Good to see you guys.
Thanks.